Darts Premier League Night 9 is here. We're in Manchester. My name's Corbin from the Parlay Club, and I've got the best bets and the plays the books do not want you knowing about, including darts, which we'll get into in a sec. As always, drop a comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Quick recap of last week. So went 3-3 on client plays for a small profit. Which is now overall for the whole Premier League season 19-5. Incredible run on Dutch Premier League. I'll mention it at various points, and I have throughout the kind of series. In darts short format in first to sixth, it can be so volatile and unpredictable. So any profits, well, obviously I expect to profit, but 19-5 is an incredible record, and we look to build on it here. Let's get right into the action. Van Gogh and Bunting. Wow. It's hard to know what you're going to get from either of these players. Van Gogh played well last week, and he looked, I want to say, back to his best. He looked like the more of the Van Gogh that started the year when he was on red hot form, winning constantly. Actually, most weeks. I don't think he went out in the first round in multiple weeks to begin the year. He beat Humphreys last week, and then a poor Josh Rock, which was one of our client plays. Probably my favourite client play of last week, actually, was the round 2 Van Gogh and Moneyline versus Josh Rock, and then lost a close final to Littler. He was averaging I think he averaged in the hundreds, I want to say, against Littler. Anyway, it was a good showing. He played well in all the games. Narrowly lost to Littler in the final, as I said. So you kind of with Van Gogh, are you going to get that Van Gogh again this week? And I suspect we might or should. I don't think we're going to get the Van Gogh that showed up for the previous month or so. So that's what I expect from him. It's more Bunting that I'm really confused about. I probably shouldn't be, but he lost 6-3 to Littler last week, averaging 107 and 33% on checkouts. I feel like he's the type of player, I've said it before, that is going to just get red hot and win a night, but then be completely awful and lose first round every week. Obviously, that's how last year he won one night and that was it. This year he's won one night and one game against Rock. It's just you don't know what you're going to get from him. If he's averaging 107, or that, even most of his games, he's actually had quite high averages in the high 90s or into the hundreds. If he does that and just improves the checkouts just slightly, it won't take much in this kind of quick format to turn it around. And he's not going to qualify still, but he can easily cause a few upsets, I think. But again, you go back to his confidence. The more he keeps losing whilst playing that well, how does that affect him? Does he turn around and go, "Jeez, I averaged 107 and I still lost 6-3"? How does it affect him going into this week? Van Gogh's won all the 3 head-to-heads this year in this format, and I think it's the checkouts that are just going to have the positive impact, and probably the reason that Van Gogh wins this game. His checkouts are higher. He's far more clinical. He has that kind of clutch factor, whereas Bunting kind of can melt under that pressure when it gets down to the 3 dart combinations, that 1 dart at tops or whatever it is. You never really feel like Bunting's going to get it, whereas Van Gogh can steal legs, and that's what helps you. If you can just nick a leg whilst playing badly with a good finish or a good checkout, that really helps you. So I'm kind of leaning towards the -150 Van Gogh money line. I haven't played it yet. I'm considering it. I feel like, again, if you're playing against Bunting, I feel like you need to play it first round every week. And if he does go on to win a night, then hopefully by the end of it, you can say, even though he won a couple of nights, maybe you're still up because of how inconsistent he is. Other than that, you look through some of these other lines, and it's +1.5. I would never take a +1.5 on any person because you're laying -145, and if you're going to take that, you might as well hope that they win, quite honestly. I was thinking about an over, but again, you can see I mentioned how good Bunting's been, but it doesn't take much for Bunting to come out and lose 6-1, like with those kind of checkouts. So you're kind of looking around and it's like maybe the dart average. Oh, I quite like this Bunting over 96.5. Mainly because, as I said, most of his averages I feel like have been in the high 90s, but the checkouts obviously bring down an average. And if I think Van Gogh's going to win, which means he's going to have the most attempts and probably the most, well, not probably, would have the most checkouts, then it just means that Bunting has less attempts at a checkout to bring his score down. You see it quite often with people that play Littler. They have one dart at a double the entire game, so their actual main scoring brings up their averages. Um, I haven't played it, as I said, but that might be one to look at, is this Bunting over 96.5 average. I'm not sure. It's interesting that there's 1 point between the average, and it's basically implying that this is a pick'em and that Van Gogh's going to be 97 or under, yet the line's minus 150. It's a bit crazy. I don't think you could do anything with the 180s on either of these. If anything, it's Bunting, but what's the. Again, 2.5. Don't really want to lay 2.5 on Bunting. Anything, quite honestly. So yeah, Bunting average, maybe Van Gogh money line, but nothing official. Lean Van Gogh with that one. Let's move on to Price and Humphreys. Two exciting players, but this just screams a stay away for me in so many ways. Price has improved so much this year. Like, he's far more consistent. His averages are up. His finishing's up. He's 2-1 against Humphreys in Premier League head-to-heads. But Humphreys is that player that I just struggle to fade every week. Like, you look at the stats and you're just waiting for him to just kick on like Littler did a few weeks ago. Like, his averages are still good. It's just the checkouts that he's mainly faltering on. And if he has them on point for a game or a night, he's gonna win it. He's gonna win. I think his scoring's better than Price, and I think he's the better player, which in hindsight may make this minus 135 look good. I think it was minus 200 last week, or they quite often have Humphreys juiced. It's one of those, if you're basing it off form and what we've seen, you kind of go Price for the whole round package. But I probably lean Humphreys as well, just because, again, maybe that's me putting too much into the stats and into Humphreys' averages. Checkouts go to Price, scoring I'd go to Humphreys, which in the end makes it a stay away. I was looking at overs and I was like, but like they've had so many head to heads where it's like somebody, like, I think Price beat him 6-1 in the last head to head and Humphreys just couldn't get going on checkouts. So yeah, probably just not even probably, it is just a stay away completely. Look, it's telling you Humphreys average is the 99.5, Price 98.5. You just pass, quite honestly. I'm interested to see. I feel like both these players can just kick on and have one good night. I'm expecting more wins to come from them throughout the year, but in this matchup, I think it's so hard to pick between the two. Quickly want to go over what I have up for clients. Hold my hands up and say the last week was not good by my standards. I think we lost every UFC play. Golf was rough. Had a nice rebound since then, though. Had some KBO, which is Korean baseball wins. F1, we swept the board again, and tennis has started off red hot. I think we've won every play and have a couple pending. That's why I always recommend always try and get a month or a year's pass if you can. Any handicapper can lose over a week, maybe even a 2 week period, but the real top ones, and like without sounding big headed, I put myself kind of at the top of that, given the records and everything that have gone up over the years. Month and year, I don't want to say I guarantee, but I've never had a losing year. So already, I think we're still over 100 units for the year. Still up big for March. Again, highly recommend jumping on a year or a monthly pass. There's also a guaranteed money back one, which I'm surprised more people haven't taken advantage of. You get 80% of your money back if we lose over a year period. Again, never had a losing year. That's why I'm offering that kind of service, because I just expect to be up, quite honestly. I think, yeah, ignore these stats on the right. We're up 100 units, I think, this year, 140 last year, and we're already just into April. So hoping to hit my 200, if not more, unit goal for the year. Right, let's get back into the preview. And our next match is Littler versus Jan van Veen. I mean, the odds tell the picture here, I think, for me. Van Veen came back last week from the surgery, and he looked rough. He looked all sorts out of practice. All elements of his game were off. The scoring was off, the checkouts, the body language, just, he never looked like he was in that game at all to me. I think it's going to take him several weeks to come back, especially to a good enough level to win. I already had him down as a fade, as I've mentioned the last few weeks. I just think that he's kind of a bit overhyped, and the stats kind of show it. His averages were never the highest, his checkouts were never the highest, but he was kind of scraping over the line. So I love Littler in this matchup. I think we might see what we similarly to what we saw with Van Gogh when he came back and he was just not himself for a good 3 weeks to a month, I want to say it was. I think that's what we get from Van Veen here. Littler in the recent month has finally kicked on. He sat top of the table. All his game is firing. His average is over 100 average every game. His checkouts are back over the 40% mark. Some of them are around 44 all the way up to 60%. If he gets even close to that, it's domination. We're obviously in Manchester this week, which is where Littler is from, so he's going to have the crowd behind him, and Littler always plays so much better when he has the crowd support. Yeah, I think even like, what's the -1.5? I think even -1.5 is live here. I don't. You could probably go back to the treble again. Most 180s and Littler money line. Where do they have the match treble? There it is. Plus 150 for Littler. Again, I wouldn't go too heavy on that, because again, first to six, anything can happen. It's not that longer format, and Littler can start slow some weeks. But I quite like that price. What the average is? I'd kind of lean again under 96.5 for Van Veen, but as I mentioned, people's averages versus Littler tend to go up because they won't get the same checkout opportunities to bring their average down. I think Littler goes over 103, and I think Van Veen goes under 96.5. But again, just stick with the money line, stick with the spreads. I think Littler should win quite comfortably this week. And finally, on to what could be the most interesting matchup of the week is Clayton versus Rock. So it's a repeat of last week's first round. Rock won that matchup 6-3. But for all the same reasons I liked Clayton last week, I still like him this week, and I think you have to go back to him here. I've made a real point of it in the last 6 months to a year that any play that I can that loses, come back to it, and it's worked extremely well. Rock last week showed the exact same level of performance that he's been doing all year. He averaged 89. His checkouts were marginally better, but he threw a couple of 180s at important moments in the match to kind of pull ahead from Clayton, who was quite awful last week in every department. I don't think Clayton can play that badly again. In my opinion, Clayton's the far better plays, the more consistent player, and I think you're getting a great number. This number is far and improved from last week. Um, Getting the better number to go back to it again. I don't expect the performance to be that bad, but it also shows where you can't go big on these darts plays percentage wise when they're first to six. You can't have, in my opinion anyway, you can't have 4, 5, 6% on a quick format like this, just because anything can happen at any point. It doesn't take an awful lot. It's not like some of these other sports where it's like they have time to regroup or they have time to make adjustments. It's just kind of, you start badly and you're 3-0 down, and it's almost impossible unless you put on a Herculean effort to come back. But yeah, I have played Clayton with something else to bring the juice down just even more. I think he's in a 3% play. I don't think I would ever go over a 3% in a first to six unless there was some huge kind of reason that we haven't mentioned. Yeah, for me it's Clayton -1.5 if you want to sprinkle. If not, just stick with the money line. I think he gets his revenge this week. And then to finish, we have to mention the bullseye finishes. So last week it actually made a loss. Let me just add these together. It went two. I think it went. Was it 1-3 or 2-2? I can't quite remember. Anyway, you lost from it. I think it went 2-2. Um, so it's now 5 wins, one break even, slight profit, and 2 losses. Again, I don't care. Just come back to it. I've started sprinkling this, all 4 of them together. I put like half a unit or something on just to make it extra spicy when it hits. But what you actually want is the round robin, 6 bets, which puts every combination together. I'm not going to bore you guys with the details. Quick format. Bullseyes are unlikely, especially in this format. You just keep riding it every single week, and I will continue to do so. Uh, just want to mention, obviously, if you want to partner up, join client plays, we're on DubClub, all the links, track record, spreadsheets, all of that kind of fun stuff. In the bio, I won't go over all the sales pitch again, but yeah, highly recommend jumping on a monthly or yearly pass, and good luck, everybody.